All right, everybody. Welcome to today's UGKA Coaches Conversation. Topic of the day is curriculums and lesson plans. I have a few bullet points that I want to kind of address and just listen to your comments, your feedback. I want you guys going back and forth, not only learning, quizzing, but don't be afraid to push back on people either. Like, I think that's what really helps from a development standpoint from coaches. And I think we can learn from people, but we can also learn from ourselves and doing things the right way and the wrong way. And it's okay. It's just a matter of making adjustments as we move forward. That said, I am going to put this out there just to start it, right or wrong. I have curriculums for different age groups. I have curriculums for U10, I have curriculums for U13, U16, and then U23. Thoughts on that? Is that too much? Is that enough? What do the lesson plans and topics look like? I'm just going to start it there by throwing myself out there. Lodge, what do you think of that? Too much? Less?
No, it's you got to break it down to age groups. Um, so I don't think it's too much. Um, the only thing that I think it needs to be done is that in your curriculums progressively throughout the goalkeeper's career, they need to kind of master that particular curriculum uh, really before they're going to be effective in jumping into the next level curriculum. And I think that's where we don't always do a good job. Um, there's no sense having uh, you know, a kid who doesn't learn what they're supposed to do before the age of 14, try to get them too advanced if they're just jumping into the program for the first time. There's definitely progression. There's definitely a mastery of each progression that helps you get ready for the next level. And I don't think that a lot of goalkeeper coaches um, stick to that. They might cover something, but they might push over something really quickly because they want to get into the next thing. Well, you have to be careful of that. I've always been a believer that you need to master your technique, and it basically has to be mastered, I believe, by 14 at the latest. Because once you get 14, now you're jumping into high school. Now tactics become more of a prevalence. And it's very difficult for these kids to learn tactics if they haven't mastered their technique. They're worried about how to go up for a high ball, what leg to go up, are they yelling keeper in time, and all this other stuff when they could be scanning the field and seeing what could be corrected just by some verbal commands instead of worrying about, okay, how am I going to do this technically? So, technical wise, you got to really slow things down for the younger kids so that they get it, and then they can move on to the next level kids. Now, of course, you're going to have these kids that come in who are like just starting out in position at 13, 14, 15 years old. Well, that's okay. I mean, a lot of big time goalkeepers have done that, but they have to be exceptional athletes. They, being the fact that there might be an exceptional field player before they get in the goal, obviously helps in today's game. But they got to realize that they got to start mastering things quicker in order to catch up with everybody. So no, I don't think it's too much. It's just that it has to be adhered to. And I think we shouldn't progress through the curriculums too fast so kids aren't mastering certain things. If that makes sense to you guys.
Absolutely. Other comments, thoughts? What Blige say? Alan, what do you think about that?
That all makes sense. I feel like I'm a little unique in, I guess, probably the UGKA community. Like, I mentioned our varsity goalkeeper who was starting most this season. I got him and a ball's on his right side. He's left-handed and he's taking his left hand and diving and doing a Superman across, right? Like just horrible technique, right? And so he's a high schooler that just never had any actual goalkeeper coaching. And you're just trying to break the habits that they have. So, in terms of you talking about age appropriate like curriculums, your U10 probably looks like the stuff I was teaching my varsity kids. So it's just a reality of where they're at in overall development, so.
Alan, you bring me to you reminded me of something I want to almost clarify. I should have said curriculum by skill sets and not necessarily curriculum by ages. That's on me. Grassroots, You can be a grassroots goalkeeper at the age of 10. And as Alan is sharing with us right now, you can be a grassroots goalkeeper at the age of 16. So that skill level is going to have a curriculum for itself compared to a more advanced who's someone in, let's say, playing college.
Now, I think as to help people who get into the position a bit later, I think one of the best ways to help these kids learn as quickly as possible is by slowing things down. And what do I mean by that is that a lot of times, some goalkeeper coaches, trainers actually, will try to do quantity over quality. They're trying to get multiple reps in on a certain thing when actually they should go for more quality repetitions so that the goalkeeper is actually learning and feeling what is supposed to be done. If we do too much quantity, what happens is that you're basically mastering mistakes, and that takes more effort to correct. So if you have a goalkeeper coming in who's an older age and is a neophyte, basically, you got to slow everything down so that they're actually feeling what the finish is supposed to feel like, if that makes sense to you guys. Okay. If they're catching the ball outside their body all the time and they're leaving it there, well, guess what? That's what they're mastering, because that's what their nerves are firing. So what I try to do at any age of anybody who's new, or I get some people who have terrible technique when they're older and we're trying to correct it, is I actually have them, let's say we're doing a volley catch, okay? They're doing the diamond contour catch, that after the catch, they put themselves through a real quick mental checklist of their finishing position. Are their feet balanced? Are their knees bent, or are they stiff-legged? Have they moved the body behind the ball? Are they finishing in an athletic form? And are their eyes into the ball? Not at the ball, but are they actually looking into the ball? I say like a crystal ball. When you train them at that level to a point and do that type of thing, they start picking up on it quicker, especially older kids. All right. So it's important in any technical development, I believe, it's important to slow things down, have them master the finishes. Therefore, they understand how the finish is supposed to be. And that, I believe that if you master the finish, everything leading up to the finish is going to be pretty correct, I would think. So if you're having that problem, try slowing things down and see what happens. The only thing we have our kids do fast is footwork. Everything else, slow it down. And it's a battle. It's a battle because our goalkeepers think that the way to learn is to work very hard and to do things very fast. Well, the working hard part's been a part of goalkeeper culture in American goalkeepers forever. I think Joe Macknick kind of instilled that amongst everybody. Okay, we work hard, and I like that. But you can't work so fast that you're not learning. So that may or may not help you guys.
Cool. Other comments? Juan, what you thinking, brother?
I agree with a lot of things that has been mentioned, especially that part between the quality over, quality over the quantity, especially on youth. I think the technique is crucial, as we mentioned. Like the older you get, the less you need to be worrying about the techniques. Still, you will find goalkeepers, or still people don't really master certain techniques, and still that doesn't mean that's the right technique. I think there is different scenarios where goalkeepers can deal with stuff in a different way, as long as it gives the answer. What I'm really curious about, especially Eric, you mentioned that you have different curriculums, is how do you actually apply those curriculums during the time, especially, for example, let's say on a club or stuff like that, when the goalkeepers are not consistent showing up, or you find different levels of skills, So I'm kind of curious about that. I would like to learn more about those scenarios.
So what quick example I try to use is with crossing. So my grassroots curriculum, crossing consists of balls put on the ground into different areas of the box. Whereas as they get older, balls start to become clipped or a little bit more aerial. And then I start to add the tactical understanding as to not what's occurring and why balls are being put into the box. And then what's the vocal leadership and communication that goes around that. Because to me, that's a huge, I say this to kids a lot. We always teach keeper when with dealing with crossing. We say away in a game more than we say keeper, in my opinion. In my opinion. So I train the away command a lot. I train second and third goal scenarios with balls being put into the box. And the variance I have is simply by the height, meaning if it's younger, it's everything's probably typically on the ground or through balls, if that makes sense. And with the older kids, it's wider, more clipped in, more directional in swinger versus out swinger type of service. And then how do, in a tactical setting, how to deal with that? What's your first thing from a communication perspective when the ball gets played into the box, whether you're a young kid or whether you're an older kid or grassroots or more experienced? To me, you have to make this decision on your vocals, keeper or away, immediately. And you can be wrong. That's okay. Like, keeper, away. Like, it's okay, but you need to be quick so you're communicating not to yourself, to your teammates, because they're going to respond and with movements. And if you're not saying anything, I think you're putting your whole back line at a disadvantage. So to me, even at the youngest ages, I'm teaching the away versus keeper call. But they almost look kind of like through balls one as opposed to crossing, if that makes sense in regards to the type of ball. So I also emphasize one-on-ones a lot with my grassroots goalkeepers compared to my older goalkeepers. So if I can instill a confidence of coming out and when to come out, how to come out, and in particular the why, they're going to do it and do it with more confidence. And what I do with one-on-ones as well, I use these big, like, they're not styrofoam or like a Nerf, although those would work well. I use these big blown up tennis balls that they're like beach balls. Like they don't hurt when you get hit with them. So I can put the kid in a precarious situation, let's call it. And I'm asking them to do either a block or hands through. I'm asking them to get there in a 50-50 setting. And I know that they won't get hurt if they get hit with the ball. So they can kind of go through with pace from a shot with pace and they'll be okay. I worked on this just yesterday with my high school kids. You also have to control the serve. They were crushing the ball and I had to stop them. Like, guys, whoa, like we're inside the 8 right now. I just want you to place a ball to the corner to help with our reactions. You coming through and lacing a ball, you're killing the kid in goal. Like, stop it. Like, just stop. Like, that's not the purpose of today. So I think servers need to understand what the purpose is, and more importantly, the age of the goalkeeper will help with the specifics within that curriculum and their skill levels, obviously. So that's one example of like one-on-ones tied in with crossing.
So Eric, whenever you're referring like to a curriculum, then basically you're referring more of like a certain group of things, of techniques that a goalkeeper must have. It's not more of like, okay, we're gonna focus on this specific scenario for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Because that was what I was curious about, like how will that context look like? For example, okay, these 6 months we're gonna work about crosses and the same practice is gonna be that, or you're referring more of curriculum of like, okay, this is the skill sets that you need to have during these stages of life. Even though like tomorrow we can train 1v1s and then on the next week we're gonna train crossing.
Yeah. The second is where I kind of go from. And I also do a lot of grouping. Like I do a lot of grouping in like for the last 5 weeks with all my goalkeepers, depending on where you are, I've been dealing with these exact scenarios. Balls played in the second box and or the second goal and the third goal. If that ball's in the air, where's your positioning? If that ball's going third goal back door, your positioning's on your ball line, like your goal line, excuse me. Like you're back almost in your goal. That ball gets cut back on the floor. The chip's probably not taking place. They're probably one touching it to a corner. You need to now come out more and be a little bit lower. Kick saves, parry saves, hands starting out wide in your set is fine because you're probably not catching it, but you need to get something on it. So I think that type of understanding, I call them if-then statements. If the ball gets played in the box back door to your third goal, where are you then going? If that ball's on the ground, put it in the same spot. Where are you going? What are you saying? What are your footwork movements? So I'll group certain, like or grouping or chunking, however you want to phrase it. I've chunked that into like a month process. And I've been working on those scenarios for about 4 to 5 weeks. We just did the pinnacle yesterday. And the pinnacle ended with the person who's serving out wide can either throw it back door to someone coming through with 2 hands, or they can put it on the floor for someone coming through with a one-touch finish. And then the goalkeepers have to live that scenario out and make decisions verbally and positioning and set position prior to that ball being struck, whether with a head or, in this case, fists, or one touch with the shot. That's like the pinnacle of it. Now, building up to that, it was, all right, we're just going to focus on balls cut back on the ground. What's our positioning? What are we saying? Can we take that ball off a low ball dive and claim it before it even gets backdoor? So I'm putting them through the exact scenario for each of those: ball in the air, ball on the ground, second goal and third goal. And then yesterday we just chunked it all together. So starting next week, we're now going to move towards more one-on-one and blocking and dealing with balls inside your 8, let's call it, where you have to be aggressive towards it. Because what happens based on what I just went through, typically there's a rebound. I hate to say that, but typically kids are giving up rebounds in those settings. So now how are they dealing with that play if it continues on? So I always try to find a in-goal or in-game moment and just blow it up to the nth degree and teach in-game moments, as opposed to today we're going to deal with crossing and we're just going to put balls in, collect them, distribute, get some shots on, rebounds. Same thing with one-on-ones. I'd like to put everything, a game scenario, into a moment and then blow that moment up over like a month. This is just me, by the way. And with younger kids in particular, so let's say that's grassroots, that's pretty much everything's going to be on the ground. I'm not doing anything high ball backdoor for kids that are U11. There's no point there. But they need to understand their positioning of being set before the shot. They need to figure out ball line. They need to figure out the movement of a stepping back and a step through as opposed to shuffling to get there. So the scenario is the same, but the level of detail and what I'm emphasizing based on their skill level is different. Thoughts on that? You guys are staring at me right now. I'm like, I'm talking too much. And again, that's me, right? And with my summer program, it's a little different. I won't chunk because I know kids are only going to be there for 6-8 weeks tops. So let's hammer for each week. I do a topic. So if a kid comes 3 times during that week, he's going to be working on the same scenario or the same in-game moment for the 3 sessions. Now, one might be on the ground, one might be on the air. It might be a combination as you go through the week. But because there's not a lot of time in my summer program, there's only 8 weeks tops, I chunk by week as opposed to chunk by month when I do my annual curriculum.
I got a question for you guys. Are your concerns more of working like with a club, excuse me, a club type of a development, club type of environment, as opposed to, or in addition to, working with groups of kids who you're offering programs openly to the public to come in and develop them through those types of programs? What is your preferences right now? What are your preferences?
As for me, it's more of a club scenario, club and university for sure.
Okay. Anybody do it for like, for lack of a better way of putting it, general public? Like have programs as a goalkeeper's academy, school, whatever you want to call it. Do you open it up? Okay, we're going to have an open training for kids ages 8 to 10, 8 to 12, such and such a date. Next hour, we're going to do a different age group, and we're going to run like a 6-8 week program. Anybody do that at all? Just out of curiosity.
I do.
Yeah, I know.
So this is interesting. So here's how my academy is broken down. I work at the township levels, at the grassroots level, for 5 communities in my local area, rec departments. Through that creates my pipeline into my small group and private business, which is where I basically, to be truthful, make most of your money. But without the township programs, I call them the feeder programs, they're rec players who haven't even touched club yet. You give them a feel for what good training is. They get confident, they enjoy it. And then from there, they'll ask, or I just, at the end of the 6 to 8 week spring or fall session, say, if anyone wants additional training, I just went through this last week. If anyone wants additional training throughout the winter, I'm going to reach out to you guys in a group email. I'm going to provide all my content. Just you get back in touch with me. I'll put you on my distribution. I'll give you all my content. for my winter programs, you'll be training directly with me. And then that's how I'll then that's how I'll populate my training for the next, literally from now until like middle of March, maybe. And then they start again. And then my summer program is my summer program.
Real
Real
quick,
quick,
you guys.
Jeff, we cannot hear you. Jeff Tackett. I don't know if you're still on mute or if you came off mute and tried to talk earlier, but I'm looking at my direct messages that you just sent. I see you're off of mute now. We can't hear you. Yeah, no, we cannot hear you. He's direct messaging me, guys.
Mhm.
If you want to type it in, though, into the message, Jeff, for all, and I can read them, we can do that. Or if you want to continue to play around with your volume, go right ahead. Sorry, Balaj. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, no worries. In your clubs, since that seems to be the general what we're working with right now in this group here, what are your numbers like? How many? Couple questions actually. How many times a week do you meet? What is the age group breakdown? And how many goalkeepers are in each one of those breakdowns? I'm kind of interested.
The scenario for me as for right now, unfortunately, we just meet once a week. So
Yeah.
it's not much that we can do. So we meet once a week. And then I have 3 different groups. I try to put it more of a skill level. So the first group is around 8 years old, 7 years old. The second group is around 11 years old. And then you have the old guys at the end. I try to keep it 5, 6 goalkeepers on each group, basically.
That's good. You're fortunate.
So you
Yeah.
get them on once a week, excuse me, and then you do all the age groups that night.
Yeah, I do it 3 hours straight.
And how many
Oh, no, I
weeks?
get you.
How many weeks? Wow.
How many weeks?
Yeah.
Well, I just started, so it has been from August basically, and then it goes all the way to December, and then small break in December, and then January back to it. With the university, of course, then you have from August all the way to a season over. So I think for the university, it's more easier for me to actually be able to actually let's plan this ahead, you know.
All right.
Yeah,
Alan, I saw you go off me. Go on. You were going to say something, Alan?
Yeah. So the town club where I also coach at the high school level, um, doesn't really never had anything before I showed up goalkeeping wise. And I did like some weekly summer training 2 years ago. And I'm getting anywhere from like 9, 10, 11 year olds up to like the high school kids, boys and girls. And because it's even grassroots at the high school level, trying to set stuff up where even the high school kids can even serve, decent balls and stuff going. I mean, it's just kind of organized. It's like a little bit of organized chaos on my part. But then I'm also, just because my kids are getting to playing age, branching out into other clubs where I know they can offer more. And the club I'm at, where I'm an assistant coach for my oldest, it's actually a decent sized club. I mean, they have their own turf and indoor facility. And man, how many teams? They might have like 40 rec travel and premier teams, so it's like decent size. They just cut their goalkeeping program, so
cut it.
it's yeah. I mean, they used to have like a weekly training session, and I went and observed it when I was checking out the club this past year. But like, I know that I'm going to be able to. I'm an assistant on a specific team, a U11 team, and basically like I'm going to give kids on that team the goalkeeper training they need, but like it's just the involvement I have now is just to keep things going however I can, so
Truthfully, Alan, I see that as an opportunity for you personally with your academy. If you wanted to then, because I don't do club anymore, I'm neutral. By neutral, I can work with goalkeepers from all different clubs. When I was working with a particular club, or in this case, I literally was working with 4 clubs all at the same time. There were times when I'd say, if you guys are open for group training, people would get nervous because they knew I could pipeline people to another club if there was some sort of reward there. I didn't, but I know I had people, hey, I'm concerned about you being a stealing our goalkeepers and pushing them somewhere else. Now, once I eliminated myself from all clubs, that started when COVID hit, my personal academy skyrocketed because people now knew I wasn't affiliated with anybody. And so it's 100% neutral. So, Alan, if that's something, just throwing that out there, or something to think about, because then you could penetrate 3 or 4 different surrounding clubs and you could coach them all, without that thought of someone saying to you, hey, Alan's just trying to, poach our goalkeepers here.
Gotcha.
Just a thought. Jeff Tackett, I want to check in with you, brother. Are you, if you can come off mute, hopefully talk, because I want to ask him pointed questions about his club. It's enormous. I just found this out. Jeff, are you there? Damn, we can't hear you, Jeff. Jeff, I'm going to assume, I hate to say this, that there's a volume control within your settings that's not allowing us to hear you. While he's looking at that, I want to give a quick overview of his club. He has a staff, and I know I'm probably going to get some details wrong. So, Jeff, correct me when and if you come on back into this. He's got a staff of like 6 to 7 coaches, goalkeeper coaches. He also has the whole, wait, hold on. You think it's a lot? I do too, but wait. He also, Jeff, are you there? Can you talk? You're on mute. Come off that mute, buddy. Because I know I'm going to ruin the Legends perspective. Now you're just messing with me, aren't you, Jeff? Come off of mute, please. What's up, Adam? I got you, Jeff.
Hey,
So,
guys.
yeah, there you are. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks.
So with Jeff's Legends FC, he has 7 or 8 coaches. Jeff, you there?
Yeah, sorry.
There he is. Jeff, I just teed you up to talk about Legends FC. Can you talk about the number of coaches, number of goalkeepers, and how you deal with the satellite locations?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because it was interesting to listen. Sorry, I couldn't talk. I don't know what's going on with the laptop. It won't let me say anything. But yeah, so the club is quite enormous. So we have the ECNL RL side of the boys and the girls, and then we also have what we call the FC side, which would be just the regular, I guess, tiers 1, 2, and 3. I'm not sure how you guys do it where you're at, but in California they have the regular league that has their tiers, and then they have the ECNL RL, and then obviously the MLS next. But so what I have is I have a staff of actually 8, and so I have staff that run the ECNL side on the boys, and I have another staff that runs the ECNL side on the girls, and then I have a staff that runs the FC boys and then the FC girls, and then obviously, like you alluded to there, I do have a satellite groups that are in different locations, and I have goalkeeper coaches that are in place to run those as well. So it's kind of it's different, and listening to just the conversation, I go through that all those scenarios, because you have the ones that are definitely ability wise, or is it in a different area, right, for where we should be teaching them and what we should be teaching them. And so I do have a curriculum that's run off of like that 6-week type cycle. We meet as coaches once a month, and we go over the curriculum to see when do we need to chunk it. I think you're saying that a little bit, Eric, is when you chunk like yeah, when we go on the crosses, obviously 1 week of crossing is just not going to cut it. So we maybe have to break it down where it's the cutback crosses, the in-game crosses, the early crosses. For the little ones, it's always more, like you said, the crossing, but it's more the high ball, just dealing with high balls, or else actually dealing with balls that are coming from a wide area, just getting the grassroots understood. So it's, for me, the curriculum is a little bit more of a blueprint. We have the sports session planner that we all are on at the same time, so we all put drills on it. I post all the drills as well if they need help, but I try to keep that a little bit more, like I said, that blueprint of, okay, you guys know your population, what you're looking at, your kids, and so go ahead and through our curriculum, through the topic, make sure at the youngest we're doing we have it broken down into those 3 phases where it's kind of the individual topic, making sure we're teaching it correctly. Then they get more into the group where it's that limited control. And then we put them into more goal oriented where it's a little more live for the youngers. And then we have a 4th phase for anyone that's more elite or the olders where it becomes not controlled, kind of like unlimited of live as much as we can do it to make sure it feels like the game as much as possible for each topic. And so it's a hard thing. I think definitely for me, knowing that these kids only get once a week, we go twice a week. The other second for the elite kids, the second one is more tactical. So all the goalkeeper coaches are on the field with the coaches themselves, and we walk around and we help them within the goal whenever they're doing like in-game stuff, just to kind of reiterate, okay, well, this is what we were working on in our topic for the week. And now you see what we're talking about. Let's say if it was off a cross, look at your positioning, look at your timing. Were you able to talk early enough? Then if they're older, then we go into a little bit more of maybe the distribution after the cross, or even on the younger ones, what do we do at that point in time? So it's definitely, we don't have enough time, I can tell you that. And then for the FC side, that's where I feel everybody's paying, because you have ones that are older, let's say at maybe 13, 14 years old, but you probably have an 11, 10-year-old that is better than the 13, 14-year-old. So you're trying to maneuver that age versus ability, but at the same time, how do you can't put the 14-year-old with the 10-year-olds or the 9-year-olds, because it's just socially that's not right. So that's always the hard part that we try to figure out and try to see what we could do with it when they're at that threshold of the older age. If they're better, we try to push them to the older ages anyway. But I don't know how you guys feel on what you could do with dropping somebody that's not at that level down. I don't know how you guys feel if that socially, does that work out for you guys, or it's just interesting to me.
Real quickly, what I do, I always, when I first come in, I always tell them that their first session's free. But keep in mind, this is not with a club. This is just with my academy. Your first session's free. And I say to them up front, I'm going to probably put you in a group that you're above, but I'd rather move you up than move you down. I'll never move someone down. To your point, Jeff, not only does it hurt, is it awkward sometimes socially, it crushes kids' confidence. So I'm never going to move a kid down, but I'll start them well below, get them jacked up. Yeah, all right. I'm ready to rock and roll. All right, I'm going to keep you in this group. What do you think? And I get their opinion. Well, okay, cool. I'll try in this group then. And then I have options that I can place that goalkeeper in. Others, I'm curious to hear other people's perspectives on that question too. Adam, you ever move a kid down with ODP?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, we've done it a couple different ways. We used to have where every age group came at a different time, so it was nice to have the staff sort of there with us the whole time, so they could do their individual work with the GKs, and then when we went to large sided and then obviously full sided, they could see the GKs in the game situation. So that was nice, and then we went to a different model where everyone trains at the same time. So we would do it basically in groups. And then Juan, he was part of this. Juan, in the individual sessions, when you had U11s to U17s all on at the same time, how did you manage that?
I mean, honestly, I will just make them as a group again, like skill level of like, okay, guys can join, you can. Well,
But I agree with you, Eric. Putting them in I've done the same thing when I evaluate a goalkeeper, from on our academy standpoint. We'd start them off in the, I don't want to say lesser, just the group, they should thrive. They should be, the top GK or one of the top GKs in that group. For me, it helps them get used to how we do things, and it gets them introduced into the culture without the pressure of performing at a certain level. And then as they're confident in our culture and how we do things, then we look at moving them up. And it is a constant battle of what's socially responsible. Am I going to put an 8-year-old girl with 16-year-old boys? No. So we have to balance, the skill, the physicality, but also being socially responsible to the individuals.
Nice. Cool. Others? Because I've got a transition. I would love to hear thoughts on time frames. I'm in a position where I can chunk and I can put the same topic in for 3 weeks in a row just because of my own flexibility with my academy. With clubs, it's a heck of a lot different. And I know that obviously with college at the higher level, it's different too, because what you're going to do during the season versus out of season, two totally different curriculums or ideas or thought process around that. So I'm curious on time frame. We've been talking, a couple of people have hinted at like 6 to 8 weeks per chunk, let's call it, and how you do the lesson plans within that curriculum of 6 to 8 weeks is each topic is a different week. Does anyone have a longer time frame to that, or are based on your situation, you can commit to a longer time frame than that?
I mean, like just the season, like the
Just
full
like
on,
your
or
like your curriculum, Jeff, in regards to like my curriculum is an annual curriculum, and I'm able to apply that in chunk and then have flexibility within that based on performance, based on how well they adapt or coach and get and grow in those certain topics. I could go longer, I could go shorter depending on the groups, my opinion on that group. Whereas when in a club season, sometimes you'll see a common issue. We're just not dealing with cross as well, but you're in the middle of your one-on-one stuff. Like you have the option as a club to say, Jeff, I would think you too, as a DOC of goalkeeping with 6 different satellite locations or more, you could probably say, hey, listen, guys, forget the one-on-one stuff. We're going to deal with crossing today, like based on what I'm hearing from feedback from coaches. But how do you
well, I
guys
think,
shape? Go ahead, sorry.
no, yeah, I implemented we have a game assessment tool that all the goalkeepers have to fill out after every game, and I tweak it every 4 to 5 weeks on the topics that we're trying to accomplish, or just things I want them to be able to either learn from or give the feedback. Like it might be just more of a communication heavy on seeing what they're saying, or I always started with, give me 2 things that you felt you did well there this game. Give me 2 things that you felt were a barrier in this game. And then if it is crossing, how many crosses did you feel you had during this game? And I usually list 1 to 3, 4 to 5, whatever. And then I'll ask what type of crosses, and then certain things I'll kind of get to. But through that, we are able to see within at least 3 to 4 weeks, we could see that maybe their barrier is breakaways. Like they keep getting these goals. I also put on there, how were your goals scored, and be very specific. And now all of a sudden, if there's a trend or there's a red flag that everybody's getting scored off of crosses, then we flip it and say, you know what, we need to start doing crosses right now and I'm fortunate enough to have a staff where I'll get them to go out to the games and make sure, hey, why are we having so many issues with this? Is it a technique thing, or is it tactical? Is it a team thing? Which again, we're there twice a week, and that's with the team, some of it. So if it becomes a team thing, then we get with the coaching staff, the field player coaching staff, and we'll create certain functional training to see if we can help the goalkeeper and the team in that aspect. So I think it evolves throughout, even monthly. So we're definitely a little bit different. We have the resources to do so, which is great, and blessed for that. But I don't know but that tool helps a lot. That tool of getting the feedback from the goalkeepers is huge for us as a staff, so that we can either continue where we're at or pivot.
Jeff, is that a mandatory for your entire club, all locations, everyone fills that out? So, I mean, you must get hundreds of goals every weekend.
It's not, I mean, it's pushed very highly. Then there's ones that some locations don't really do it like the others. To be honest, the hub of where we're at, the main center, is what all the main administrative and directors say we need to really make sure this is perfect first, and we continue to branch out. And so the hub itself is definitely, I'd say, pretty much in the high 80% act that they comply and do it weekly. So it's pretty legit. And then, like I said, I could filter it to show they're a 7v7, a 9v9, or 11v11 keeper, or if they're an ECNL keeper or MLS Next keeper, I can filter that. So then we design it based off of those needs as well.
It's awesome. It's awesome. We're starting to get, I want to get the one that we're putting out in our newsletter. I want to get 1,000 goals. And I want to be able to break it down by age. I want to be able to break it down by skill level or league in this case, and then present those male, female. Like, so I'm looking forward to putting that out there. We're not there close. We're not even close to that yet. But Jeff, that's awesome that you have an opportunity to collect that data. I think that's that's so important that I love that.
Eric, just to touch on that, if there's anything that we can do here in Oklahoma to push that even more,
Thank you.
I don't want to derail us, but let us know, and I can push it in the Grassroots Academy. They'll let me push it there, and then for ODP, I think it'll add benefit, to the goalkeeper, since Juan left us.
Juan, he's plugging you big time today, man. What does he owe you, lunch or something? What's going on?
Yeah. But Eric, just to, reflecting about the question that you made as well, like for example, time-wise, and that's why, like my first question regarding how do you actually define a curriculum is, because I just think that it's really hard for you to say, okay, we're gonna work 6 months of crosses. Because at the end, for example, in the university, like we're gonna work 6 months in crossing, but you're considering because your distribution sucks. So how in the world are you gonna continue working with the same thing over and over? Something, and even in club, like I think you're able to like put that curriculum. I think curriculum is a perfect scenario if you have like a private, or like you said, like a specific academy where you're actually working with the goalkeepers regarding of the club, because you're able to actually showcase certain topics during certain period of times. But I think, for example, and me reflecting about the club scenario, I would love to have like certain specific scenario if I have them 2 days. That way, one day we can work about different scenarios of the game, including all the things that we're actually working on the certain curriculum, And it's kind of the same of how I kind of try to handle it in the university. And of course, I know I have a lot to learn of it, but with the university, the way I kind of organize my stuff is like, okay, I want to work on not certain topic specifically, but certain actions. For example, like one day where we're gonna just perform a lot of techniques, another day where we're gonna perform like more of the life scenarios, and hopefully we can translate that technique over that. So for example, if I know my goalkeepers need to improve on distribution, and that's like my goal for these 4 months, I'm gonna put a lot of drills where you have a lot of distribution involved or stuff like that. And then, for example, let's say on Monday, we'll work on those specific techniques of bringing the ball down, being able to kick the ball, being able to know how to control, how to pass, and all these, being able to read the game. But then later in the week, then I'm still involved in crossing or stuff like that. And I'm just stuck like, okay, we're just gonna distribute, but they're able to see it on a different perspective, on different scenarios. And if we need to work about some other topics that's gonna happen, then we're able to add it over here. I don't know if that kind of answers. So it's really hard to say like, okay, I'm just gonna work on crosses for 6 weeks. I think on a club level, that will be an easier answer if you're able to see it more than one day, because then you can stick to one day. Okay, we're gonna work on just poorly crosses, and then the next day or whatever, you're gonna be able to add different things and see how they perform with the crossings. If that makes sense. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
It makes total sense to me.
Could you repeat that in English, please?
No, I cannot. That's the issue. That's probably
Sorry guys. We're family here.
I can barely do it.
I
Jack, you just went back on mute. You started to talk and then you hit mute, I think, accidentally. There
Yeah,
you go.
just in terms of the length of the curriculum, it's going to be very variable, and I will put it in the perspective of learning and forgetting. So part of learning is being able to forget things and revisit some topics. But I also think the rate of learning can be different based on skill level or even personalities or how keepers learn. So that balance between following our curriculum, so like to Roger's point, like mastering the fundamentals, the techniques and those situations versus something comes up in a game. So then how do you find the balance between both? But the barometer I always use is, are they learning, and is it long-term memory, or is it that they do something for a week or two or three, and then 3 or 4 weeks later they forget? So then we really haven't hit the long-term learning process. So I think along the lines of like 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks will be a good gauge in terms of evaluating what's in the curriculum, because curriculum is theory, but you also have the reality of practical. So you might plan something, but you realize you only hit a certain things and you just need more time. So I think it just becomes an issue of what the reality is, and maybe you just have to spend a little more time or come back to certain topics as you go.
Well said. Well said. Do you guys teach in your curriculum set pieces, organization, and communication? Jeff, I want to learn about what you do. All of a sudden, Jeff's quiet again. He can't figure out his mute button again.
It's hard on the phone. I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure out. I go to different screens when I can't figure it out. Sorry.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I would love to learn about what people do for community. I have my own thoughts on this and what I do with my group, but I'm always curious as to how people train them.
Again, ours is a little bit different because, like I said, the way we're set up, we do have the topics, and if the topics are appropriate for having that communication, let's say, like if a crossing topic, or if we do anything that has anything that's a through balls or anything that we could talk or organize, then that's put into the itself in that Tuesday, let's say, topics. And then when we're Thursday with the teams itself, if any of those issues or any scenarios pop up in their training, then we're kind of reiterating, did you talk there? Did you organize there? Are you able to see that? So that they're kind of getting that total recall, that memory, which I think somebody was talking about earlier. Can they remember that? And then we also do every other week, we do game film. And so we're watching the games itself and going back and forth on the communication part. Every other week, if we do game film, we also either do a classroom topic, which is set plays. We just did set plays 3 weeks ago, and then last week we actually just did the communication. So we're set up that we have a classroom where we're able to then go in and make sure we discuss the set plays, because I'll tell you, I have them raise their hand. How many of you guys have worked on your corner kicks defensively this year? And maybe 2 or 3 will do it because the teams just don't do anything defensively. How many people have done walls? That's pretty much nothing at all, right? So for us to try to be able to have that ability to take them in the classroom and do stuff like that is huge, because there's no way that they get it in their training. And then obviously I don't think it's very hard for us to really work on set plays in our training, other than if we have the ability to maybe do a quick little 5 or 6 minute thing with, hey, let's set up walls. Do you guys understand it? Or corner kicks, we're doing crosses. Let's talk a little bit about positions of where we should be, where they should be, versus, how the team wants you to be. And are you able to have a relationship with your coach to say, hey, this is how I feel we need to do it for a wall or a corner kick, or even the biggest thing that we work on is the crossing free kicks, right? So that whole protocol of having a little bit of a wall, pushing everybody up to the top of the 18 or the wall or whatever that may be, just so they could create that protocol, so they could create the communication, and just to reiterate over and over again as many times as we can. But again, that's with the elite ones, and that's with a little bit of the older, but the youngers, if they're always invited to come to the classrooms, and they don't see the importance, I don't think, because I have 144 goalkeepers that are at the main hub, and in those classrooms, I do 3 sessions. I would say I probably only get maybe 55 to 60 from the rest of the club. So I have issues with trying to get that point across, and that's hard, and I don't even know how others would do it. So that's interesting for me, for sure.
Comments on that? Alan, you come from the exact opposite end of the spectrum. What do you guys do with communication, set pieces? Is that a head coach responsibility?
We actually do cover it. It was something we struggled with all fall. Actually, just controlling our 6. So corners and set pieces, we gave up, unfortunately, our fair share of goals. But we actually will, we just run through it. We'll divide it up and actually, throw balls different areas of the field, out wide, top of the 18, and actually just see how setup responds and how they get organized, how quick. I don't know. I think it's relatively simple to go through that exercise. So we do some.
Do you get, I've had this happen before with one of my, because again, I'm an academy. I'm not working with teams, not working with clubs. Kid has come back to me the week after saying, my defenders were appalled as to what I was saying and how I was saying it, and my coach loved it. But there was disconnect between me and my players, my friends, because all of a sudden I'm coming out there barking orders, and the coach doesn't teach it, but the coach loved what I was doing. But people just thought it was weird because here I am. It didn't come from my coach to say this. It's just me doing it. So there was no
Yeah.
communication between obviously me and the head coach at this club, which I don't have ever communicated. I've never had to communicate with them. But when he brought it back to the team environment, there was a little bit of disconnect. I'm always curious on that relationship.
Yeah.
He thinks it should be something that the head coach should be training versus the goalkeeper coach training.
Yeah. I mean, I'm often as an assistant coach training our head coach. He thinks, we don't play flat 4. And just because of the dynamics of the overall tactical understanding of kids. So but he thinks the leader in the back is a sweeper, right? And so not that the sweeper can't be a leader, but that yeah, so there's I'm been educating the head coach that I work with on goalkeepers. One thing I found interesting, a lot of our kids don't venture out to bigger club opportunities. The goalkeeper that I was working with who fractured his hand that I was telling about earlier. So he was not playing a lot of the season, but he came from a club environment, and I was just shocked. His back line called balls for him, right? So usually it's the other way around, that the level of goalkeeper coaching at a high school level is, I would say, probably non-existent or not of quality. And I found myself, at least in this example of I can't believe at a decent club level, in terms of the club, what I thought was a decent club environment, that this kid goalkeeper came back to me after a year playing club and telling me that his back line was calling, they would call for him when they wanted him to get an aerial ball, right? So him learning his range and what he's supposed to come to get, and then indecision that carried over into the high school season was rough to deal with. But so I don't know. That's just my experience, I guess.
Is it like fingernails down the chalkboard when Alan was talking about the defenders telling the goalkeeper to go get the ball? Like one of the best things that ever happened to me, for me, with my connection to my back line, the head coach in my high school team literally sat the whole team down and he said, what he says goes. I don't care if it's right or what it's wrong, but what he says goes. And if you don't listen, I'm taking you off. And it was like corner kick setup, wall setup, marking back post. It was one of the best things that could have happened to me as a leader on that team. And I was as a sophomore. So I was yelling at obviously people, you're 14, 15, you're talking to a 17, sometimes an 18-year-old, and you got a tone to it. There's a high school dynamic where the high senior is going to turn around and knock out the sophomore. You know what I mean? So it's like, but that helped me out. So it was huge. And it allowed people, it woke up the listening skills on the team, and it woke up the understanding as to who's really supposed to be in control, not the defenders and not the coach, not a parent. So for any of you head coaches out there who deal in a team environment, that worked for me personally as a player. And I've tried to do that in my game, whenever I've dealt with a team, by the way.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I was
always
gonna
say
say.
you can only go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna say that was a big thing. Yeah, when coaches will ask, I can't get my goalkeeper to communicate or certain things like that, and I always put it back on him that you're the only one that can empower that. Like if you do exactly what you just said that your coach did, if coaches would actually say that at halftime or after the game or in practice, that listen to the goalkeeper. If the goalkeeper says something, you do it, and then making sure your goalkeeper obviously now has the knowledge to know to say the correct thing, right? But empowering the goalkeeper is that changes the whole culture, that changes the whole dynamic of everything. If that could happen, you definitely see the benefits of it.
100%. And then
Yeah, I
that
was
kid
gonna
better know what the
say,
hell they're doing. That goalkeeper
yeah,
better know what they're doing then. Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
no, you're good. And I layer my communication. So, when they're brand new, right? Like I'm just getting them to say keeper or away, right? Like, so I give them this or that, right? Like just every time we work on communication every session, right? So it's not part of it, it's overarching every session that we have. But I try to give them bite-sized pieces so they're not overwhelmed as they're coaching the team. But to your point, I operate the same way, and whether it's ODP or, semi-pro, adult teams or academy is you can't direct someone you can't see. So how's the back line doing it, right? Like, because the keeper has to be involved, especially, when you're defending space and they have no idea what the space is, right? So that's how I introduce it to club coaches, to ODP head coaches. It's yes, the goalkeeper's the coach on the field during games, and you can only lead people that you can see, right? And the goalkeeper has the best view. So.
Love it. The only other thing that I wanted to just kind of throw out there, we have like 2 minutes. We typically go 60 tops, but if you guys have to leave, go right ahead. But I'm going to encourage some more conversation on one more topic. We've been speaking a lot of tactical and technical. I'm curious, in your curriculums or when you deal with your GKs, what do you do, if anything, with the physical, the psychological, and the leadership skill sets that are needed in this position, if anything?
I found when we were working with a club, what they would do is at the younger ages, they would actually require 1 or 2 players, field players from each team to join a goalkeeper training session on the Saturdays to get a feel for what it's like. And then if some of them kind of catch fire and come back, or some don't. But the problem were the numbers. So what I started doing is throwing a little bit of responsibility on the kids themselves. I would explain it, this very simple activity, especially at the younger ages. And then I would pair them up, and then I would have the server basically coach the keeper that's doing the work, saying like, okay, your head's not down behind the ball, you're stepping with the wrong foot. And what happened was these kids really took to that. They liked the responsibility, I guess, of first of all, it helped their observation skills. They were watching what the other person was doing. And then they had a friendship, a relationship with the kid anyway, because they're on the same team. So there really wasn't much of a problem as far as the communication between two people in the same team. They were both goalkeepers. And then, or a goalkeeper and a field player, if the field player were coming for the session. But what happened was it developed a relationship between the kids. It got simple communication of them trying to correct and help each other. And they realized they were helping each other. And then the person that was getting help was realizing the fact that they're just helping me, they're not putting me down, which is reinforced by me all the time saying, accept the criticism if it's make sure it's positive, and that we're all here to help each other. And that built up a culture over a period of time where it really worked. So if you're dealing with numbers, that could be a solution for you. Situation we have with ODP is we only get together maybe 4 times in the fall, 4 times in the spring, and then you got your friendlies and all that kind of stuff. So I just started up a leadership program. So I'm going to start with the ODP this weekend, where I'm going to take 1 or 2 goalkeepers out of each age group, depending on the size and number of kids we have. Like the younger kids, we might have 8 goalkeepers. The oldest group, we might have 2 or 3. I'm going to select a leader in that age group, or 2 leaders in the younger age groups, and going to give them a couple of responsibilities. Number 1 is go up and introduce themselves after they leave our little warm-up session. Go to the head coach, introduce themselves. We're the goalkeepers. We'll make sure they know the coach's name, make sure the coach knows their names. And Coach Blodgett wants to make sure that we don't use the word keep, that we use the word keeper. And we want your help with that as the coach. And we want you to help anytime a player says that, to stop it. And then the other thing is they're going to be is to learn the backs' names. So I'm giving them basically 3 responsibilities. And then at the end of the training session, they come back to me and ask me how it went. So what I'm trying to do is because the thing I don't like is exactly what I think was Adam was saying, or was it? I think it was Adam, where they're yelling out keeper. They're taking responsibility. The field players are taking responsibility, telling the goalkeeper what to do, and you can't do that. And so by what I'm hoping will happen by the goalkeepers going to the coach and expressing these couple of things, that kind of trigger something in the coach's head that they'll start watching it too. And then when these kids come back and talk to me at the end of the day, and say, did the coach support you? And if not, okay, I can address that myself because I know all these guys. But it just might change the dynamic of everything as far as communication, getting to know the kids, because I hate the fact that all the field players got to do is know 1 name, the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper's got to try and learn 4 names. They're doing 4 backs, maybe including the number 6. And that's a lot of responsibility for kids just coming into an environment, maybe 8 times out of the year. And then, because what I've seen when we go to watch tournament games, the breakdowns are incredible. The defensive organization is so lacking, and because the goalkeeper doesn't know what to do, the players don't know what to do. Nobody's putting anything together. So hopefully this type of thing might help. So it's listen to all these conversations, and I could go off on all sorts of stuff, because every one thing you guys are saying, I've seen it. Okay. And sometimes some of the work we've done works, sometimes it doesn't work. I'd like to say one more quick thing in what we do, because we have a lack of time in a lot of cases. Like when I was with TCNJ women's soccer, the coach come up to me, okay, you got it for 15 minutes. Now, what the hell are you going to do in 15 minutes? Okay. So basically what I started doing is created what I call rhythm work, which would involve a 1 or 2 touch receiving and passing off to another server, a footwork pattern, so they're getting their footwork going through whatever the footwork pattern might be, and some type of handling. And then always communication, asking for the ball, always communication when distributing the ball. I've developed a system out here where we just say yes, the person's name, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it helps that people get to know people's names and use it. And then that person has to respond by saying yes to the goalkeeper's name. So now the communication is on. It's not just a one-way street. And then what it does, it gets your communication going, it gets your foot touches going, it gets your foot skills moving, and it gets your handling going. So you're incorporating a lot of different things into a very short session. So after 15, 20 minutes of doing this, at least they're in a rhythm. So when they get into the goals, then you can get behind the goal and start doing some more of your coaching there, instead of having these kids just going cold. And then, okay, now the team's coming at you, ripping shots at you, and these kids are, they're not ready for it. So I think that might be a technique that might work for you guys in those types of situations, because it covers basically little spots things of the communication, the footwork, the foot skills, the turning your head, scanning the field, and handling and distribution, all in a very short thing. So hopefully that might do something as well as help you guys get through certain things.
Love it. Love it. Other comments, thoughts?
Yeah, the other thing I picked up from you guys, listening to you, and it depends a lot whether you're training with a club, I think, your own academy players, or a university, those type of things, is you have a macro scenario in your head of what you like to cover for the year, but there's certain situations more for the probably the club teams and the university type of teams where you have to go micro, because like I forget who was saying it during the games, but you might notice something like that. A coach might come up to you, listen, my goalkeeper sucks in this, they not blah, blah, blah. So then you have to work on that particular thing to satisfy the coach, basically. Okay. So you might have to deter from what you plan to do in a progressional way to address things that need to get done that make the team more successful from the coach's point of view. So that's very, very important. But when you have your own curriculum type of thing for your own academies, maybe you break it down a 6-week program, and then you cover your things in the 6 weeks. And the second 6-week programs, you cover them again, but maybe a little different form, more advanced, and you just keep pushing it that way, because you can't go one. I'm sure you realize this. You can't just cover one thing once and then the following year you take it up to the next level. You got to try and take whatever you've learned in your first sessions, advance it to the next one, keep advancing it. And if it doesn't work, we take a step back. You can control it that way. So, so many different ways of doing it, but there's certain ways that I think it's important that you do it with the different types of groups that you're working with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. The only thing I would say, guys, is in my lifetime, those that have brought in leadership skills or psychological tools have not only been good coaches, they've been my great coaches. And I tell that to everybody. I'm like, if you really want to separate yourself, get out, keep doing your technical and tactical, but apply life lessons into your sessions. And life lessons don't have to sit, you're not talking about accounting. You're not talking about like sitting someone down about something that non-related to goalkeeping. You're talking about the tangibles that people can take from the goalkeeper training: leadership, communication, delegation. Like those are management skills that you can use in any aspect of your life. And those are the coaches that always stood out to me. And in breaking it down, the 5 elements development, technical, tactical, we're always doing it. That's what we talked about mostly today. The physical component, we didn't really touch on it, but I don't incorporate it into my sessions. I kind of trust that there's another 75-minute session or other sessions where they're dealing with their physical makeup and their fitness, goalkeeping fitness. But the leadership and the psychological tools, no one teaches these kids this stuff. And it's whose responsibility is it? I think people are afraid of it. I don't think people touch it. And I think those coaches that do are the ones that are going to have the most impact on the development of kids, in whatever capacity.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with that. And I kind of built my whole career on that. And the other thing I find very important to do is to talk to the parents. A lot of people don't like to do that. To me, I think it's incredibly valuable in building the culture that we're all here trying to build. Okay, we all have our ways of doing it, but we also have same ways of doing it. But I think it's important to bring in the support group of the goalkeeper, their families, so they understand what you're doing. The parents continually come up to me and say, listen, I got a problem with this, blah, blah, blah. I listen, offer suggestions, and see what happens. But if you're pushing away the parents, that just confuses them even more. And it's not getting done what we need to get done as far as to create the proper environment for their sons or daughters so that they can learn the most and get the most out of the position, whatever that level is going to be. I don't care if you're not going to be a pro, but if you're just going to play club level, just going to go up to high school level, we want you to be the best prepared and enjoy the position so that you're going to have the best experience. But I encourage everybody to, I'm sure you do anyway, but I encourage everybody to take the time to listen to the parents and give them some type of, even if it's like a once in a while meeting with them or something like that. I think it's very valuable.
All right, boys. Listen, I appreciate your time. We went over today, went 75, she went 70 minutes, started a little after, but thank you for your time. I appreciate y'all and have